Oh, attackers, go on. Joe Andrade. What a goal.
And again, Gabby Fernando on the 6-yard line. 99th minute. 9 minutes of injury time, and Gabby has won it for Stretford Paddock.
Shot on goal. Oh! Wow!
And that is that. Stretford Paddock, first piece of silverware. Tony Downs Memorial Trophy.
Hello and welcome to the Stretford Paddock Fans Podcast. My name is Chris and we're here once again to talk about Stretford Paddock and our journey in this season's Cheshire League Division 1. Now joining me this week are two very familiar voices. First up, our ever-present, we've got Stu.
Good evening, everybody. Up the fucking paddock.
And joining us once again, the voice of Saturday commentary, we've got Liam.
Hello, hello.
Right then, lads, let's get into it. The last couple of weeks have put us up against two teams you'd probably call promotion rivals, if you can even use that phrase in November. But they've thrown up a real mix of emotions. Firstly, an absolutely shocking defeat against Egerton that felt like a serious reality check. We then followed that up with a spirited late winner against Claybrow, so plenty to get through. Unfortunately, we do have to talk about that Egerton game. So we'll get that out the way first because that one felt like a real gut punch at the time. Liam, I'll come to you first. Egerton 5, Paddock 0. Try and summarise that game for me without completely losing your head and tearing into absolutely everyone.
Yeah, it was one of the worst performances I think I've seen from Paddock in a long, long time. Maybe even all time, really. Based on the levels we've been putting in last season, this season, yeah, we have leveled up. We've been looking like much more of a team unit, much more of a workforce. Even you could say, yeah, we've lost a few more technical players, perhaps. We've made up for that with discipline, tactical adherence, and that positive attitude, that good mental space. And all of that fell out the window against Egerton. And just, we were humbled, in a sense, by Knutsford. They grafted hard and they punished us with their intensive press. And, they really worked for it. And it was a close game the other way around for that fixture. We went, on another day, we could have lost that. And that other day happened and we did. But with Egerton, it wasn't even that they hit us the same way Knutsford did. I think Knutsford were the better team. But we were just so off the pace that, yeah, just like Egerton were just solid and we were not. And they punished us hard for it.
Stu, is that an accurate representation of the game? I think Liam let people off very lightly there.
I think he's let him off really lightly. Yeah, he's not naming names. He's just simmering here. And I don't know where to start, Chris. I was boiling after the match. I was not happy watching anything that I saw during this game. I said to the lads after the game that I was dreading coming onto the pod. I thought it was going to be that week because I never want the lads to put me in I want the lads to put me in a position where I can say, you know what, we've lost that game, but we've tried. We've run. We put some energy into the ground, and look, the other team were just better. Let's be honest, they were better than us. We can't say they weren't. But my gripe was, I had no fallback. I couldn't come onto the pod and say these lads have run into the ground. They've given 100%. They've tried the hardest, and that's what all I ever want to do, even when we lose. And you couldn't do that. And for the first time ever, I've been going. I think it's my 4th season now as a match goer, and I've never ever stood at the gate for the exit of the pitch and questioned the lads when they leave. But I did after this game. I said to them, "What the fuck's going on?" Joa came over and I said, "What the fuck's going on, Joa?" I said, Egerton didn't even need to outrun us in that game because we didn't even fucking run. I felt. I'm getting annoyed talking about it to you, let alone how I felt on the day. And I pulled over some more of the lads and was questioning about what was going on. And what I saw during the match as a spectator, might have been different to what obviously Steve and Gibbo saw, how the lads felt. I could see how the lads felt when they were walking off. But Joe Coleman said last season during the members only podcast, hold us to account. And by God, I was going to hold them to account for that performance, because never do we as spectators want to question the lads' commitment during a game. But when you're watching that unfold, you have to ask questions, especially after the Knutsford, where we got drilled 3-0 away from home. We was pretty, I don't know what the word is.
Shit.
Lackluster.
Lackluster. Thanks, Liam. We was lackluster against Knutsford, and you're expecting some sort of response. Get into training, do your hard work, come out following week and put in at least a performance. Like Chris, you said, these are title rivals, these are promotion rivals, and therefore we expect some real effort, match in, match out, regardless of the scores. We don't expect to win everything. In fact, coming into this league, we expected probably to get pumped a couple of times. But with the levels we've shown against the opposition, to be fair to us, we've got some high standards now. I think we can allow ourselves to afford us those high standards. I think anybody else in our position who've been promoted from Division 2 into Division 1 with the standard of football we've been playing would expect a little bit better than what we have, from the Knutsford game, from the Egerton game, maybe from this Sandbach one that we even just about won with that last minute goal from Omar. So we can afford ourselves to turn around and say that's not good enough. We want to be in the promotion hunt and potentially a title challenge. So that's the first time I've ever questioned the lads when I've walked off the pitch, because it just was not good enough.
I think Egerton scored the first goal after about 20 minutes, and it was coming, and they were just, they were great in possession, Egerton, but God, we let them play. It was so passive. And the goal went in, and I just thought, this is going to be 4, 5, 6 today. Like, you could see it really early on by the way the game had gone. And also, it's a continuation of a shocking performance the week before against Knutsford, where it was 3-0, but it could have been 5 or 6 because, our best player on the day was Florin. And like you say, the week before that, it took an Omar Sinclair 97th minute free kick to get us 3 points against Sandbach. We haven't played well for a while. And there's been times this season where we've played poorly and won the game because the opposition weren't up to our level, and we get away with it through, individual moments. If you play Egerton or Knutsford or Claybrow or Dayton or Winsford, and you play like that, you're going to get pumped like 4 or 5-0, and that's exactly what happened.
We haven't been pumped beyond 3-0, I think, for a very long time. I think that the last time we have gone anywhere near a 5-0 was, I think, during a pre-season friendly against Ralston in the Tony Downs Trophy, when I think we got beat about 8 or 9-0 that game, because that was their second season having banded together again, and they were looking for a little bit of revenge, weren't they, that pre-season in the Tony Downs? But that was fair enough. But in the league, I don't think I've ever seen us get beat more than 3-0, maybe. I mean, I'd have to go right back in my memory or in the record to find it.
I researched this for the pod because I was going to challenge you both to a question. And I was going to say, when was the last time we conceded 5 in a competitive game? And I couldn't ask you that question because we've never conceded 5. So that's the first time in club history.
Exactly.
We've shipped 4 a few times. Most recently against Winsford back in Division 2 a couple of years ago. But yeah, that's the first time we've lost 5 goals in a game, competitive game.
Which, does it put it in perspective for us as supporters a little bit? Yes, but we can still allow ourselves to have higher standards, like I said, want more from the team. And we talk about this Paddock ethos, values, the standards that have been created, the culture that's been created over the last couple of seasons. That did not transpire to the pitch against Egerton. And that's, I think, what really, really made me quite angry on the day, and asking questions of the lads. Do not ever expect to see that level of performance from a Stretford Paddock first team side ever.
I think it's quite damning as well. We talk about, obviously you said about Florin against Knutsford, keeping us in it, stopping it being a bigger scoreline. Rhys Holmes, his successor, came in against Egerton. And I thought, and I know a few other people thought, he had a really good game. and we've conceded 5. And it's bad. Obviously, 2 games we've been battered by the opposition. Both games we didn't think the goalkeepers had done much wrong. And yes, you can rely on good goalkeepers to keep you into some games where you maybe you should have lost and you've actually nicked a draw, or you should have drawn and you've nicked a win. That great players can help do that, but it is a team game. You can't rely on one person, and the goalkeepers shouldn't be feeling bad for themselves that they've let in all these goals because other people switched off, and that's the big thing for me. It felt like either it was a dereliction of duty from a lack of effort, or it was just a mental tune-out. And whether that's the busy part of the season, we've had a lot of hard teams, a difficult run. Could it have been just mental fatigue and people just weren't quite at it? Still in our development of this squad, because on paper we are a fairly young team overall. A few older heads started in, so is it some of that? But it's hard to say. But all I can say is, the last few games, as we've mentioned, have all been fairly subpar. And I think it was you mentioned it to me, Chris, saying about open play goals. We haven't scored much out of set pieces.
Last open play goal was Sam Pratt against St Helens. That's more than a month ago now. I know we've not played every week, but yeah, we had a penalty and a free kick against Sam Batch, and then obviously we didn't score against Knutsford, didn't score against Egerton. So yeah, I always feel like like you said, you mentioned 2 things there, like the dereliction of duty, like not putting in an effort and then not being switched on. I feel like they're the same thing. Like if you turn up and you're in that mind space where I'm going to win every tackle, win every second ball, I'm going to challenge for every header, then by nature, like you're a bit more switched on because you're physically there, you're mentally there as well. We just weren't at the races at all. And to be fair, we haven't been for a while. And it was not just a reality check, but I think it was it left me extremely worried at the end of the game. Like the wheels might have fallen off kind of the season, that sort of bad. Like you mentioned the goalkeepers, Liam, like you said that, Reece had a good game against Egerton, and I agree, and Florian had an excellent game against Knutsford. I think you could have put a scarecrow in goal for Knutsford and Egerton in those 2 games, and I don't think we'd have scored. I don't remember us having a shot. It was that one-sided. Sometimes you get beat 5-0 and you say, the scoreline flattered them. Didn't. It could have been 6 or 7, and we couldn't have had a single complaint.
One of the messages that Steve Houseman was trying to get across to the lads after the Knutsford game when they were sat on the pitch was that you're not entitled to any results. We've had a good start to the season, but any one week you can come up against these teams and they're going to put you to the sword. So you need to go out every single week, like your life depends on it, and try to run as hard as you can. And no matter what the team is, whether it's Billinge, whether it's Dayton, you need to go out there and do the business week in, week out.
Yeah, I think maybe the fact that we've got a couple of players in might shake things up a little bit. I think you get a bit of, you call it entitled, but maybe complacency as well. Like certain players are getting picked every week, not because they're really performing really well, but because, we have a lack of options. For the most part of this season, we've had 11, 12 players, senior players, and then a handful of the kids who we throw in to fill the gaps when we have them. And yeah, maybe that those extra signings we've got, the fact that the kids are pushing for starting places and getting starting places is exactly what a lot of them need. Because like you say, and like we've seen, if you don't show up with a full effort, 100% effort, this is what happens in this league. You will get beat, and not just from the best teams as well. Like we nearly got beat against Sandbach, who, no disrespect, but they're mid-table, and we almost threw away a lead early in the season against Winstanley. We hung on for dear life in that game. We've had the warnings, and now we got the outcomes. One point I wanted to raise, because you mentioned it, Stu, earlier on. You mentioned like putting it right at training after you've had a bad result or a bad form. We didn't have training the week between Knutsford and Egerton. Do we think that was a mistake?
I think it's a mistake. I know Steve wasn't around with some of his other commitments, but I think it was a missed opportunity to, like I said, get together. It's not so much about running through the drills, because I don't know about you two, but I've played at a pants level of football before, and there's still the same premises of team solidarity, that unity, the harmony between you all. And even just going through the motions of a training session, regardless of what level you are, whether it's Premier League or whether it's lower than Pub League level that I'm at, you still have to have that unity with your team. And if there's any issues within the team, and we've heard stories from the inside about bit of disharmony in the camp, If there's any issues like that, you want to have a training session to be able to get out on the field and sort that out in person while doing the game. It's a lot easier to resolve problems out there, just getting back at it and getting on with things, than it is to be like, right, let's all sit down in the dressing room or sit down, in whatever social space and let's have a chat. It's a bit more of a let's sweep it under the rug and let's build on what we can rather than our differences. And so I think it was a wasted chance to get a bit of that out of the system to blow up a bit of steam to just clear the headspace, and it told with an even harsher defeat. And was it a lazy? Was it a lazy performance? Was it a disruptive performance? Either way, it's an unacceptable performance to lose 5-0 to Egerton. We are supposed to be rivaling, based on our performances this far. We're supposed to be rivaling the teams like Winsford, like Egerton, like Knutsford, and okay, we got a decent draw against Winsford, but we just absolutely got pantsed here twice in a row, and we really need to see turnaround going forward. We need to see some big efforts from people. We've all been singing the praise of Cam Waters as our potential player of the season already. And what is it that Cam's bringing that others aren't? He has that tenacity, and we all like a player like that. But he's just go, go, go constantly. And, not everyone's going to have that level of stamina. But you've at least got to put in the work rate as much as you can, as much as possible. And in the games we have done well, and even the games we've scraped and gone, oh, that was a decent win, surprising there. People have worked hard. There's been absolutely no faulting people's effort for the most part of the season. People have grafted, they've put in a shift, they've played well, they've played to the plan, the tactics, the plans agreed beforehand. They've adapted when needed to based on position changes, and they've made it work. And we've really earned our place high in the league. Great, but that's just gone out the window the last few games, and that needs to change.
Do we need to give Egerton some flowers while we're here? They came out, and I'll be honest, we've always said it starts with a warm up. I can't genuinely say that I was all that impressed with their warm up that we're doing. I looked at them and thought they looked a bit lackadaisical, relaxed, I guess, maybe to try to give it a positive spin on it. They looked relaxed, they looked crisp, they looked calm and ready to play. There was no high intensity about the warm up, so nothing really gave it away there. But when they started to play, they really knew how to move the ball around, especially around the defence, looking for those openings, being patient. The one thing that I thought that they did really well was waiting for that press to happen before choosing their pass. Whether that went through the middle and it bounced off, or that they made a cheeky little switch over onto one of the wings, predominantly left side towards Nathan Holland, as we expected. But they seemed like a really well-drilled team. They look like they've got some really serious aspirations. Could their beginning of the season impact that? It really could, because they dropped quite a lot of points, didn't they? And they've played about 19 games already this year, and teams can quite eat, including us. I think how many points are we behind them? 6 or 7. We're not that far, with about 5 games in hand on them. So the beginning of the season could hinder them a lot, but they seem to be going strength to strength off the back of what we're seeing from recent results. And now we've experienced a performance like it as well. And they could easily go and put in a serious run of form to be pushing for promotion. But I genuinely think that the beginning of their season is what's going to impact that negatively. But based on what I saw there, they could have genuinely been pushing for the title.
Yeah, we were on the pod last time with Craig, and see, I've never seen Egerton play before, and most of us haven't. But we'd all heard good things, like they try and play good football. And on the one hand, you want to give them credit because they were genuinely the best team I've seen play against us in terms of how they play football and their style. But on the other hand, you're thinking we were so bad that we could have made anyone look that good that day. Like, honestly, there was no press, no pressure, giving them unbelievable amounts of time on the ball just to pick their passes. And, we made them look like Barcelona. Even, we'll have to play them again later this year. We'll find out. Hopefully we put a proper team out and a proper performance and we see what they're really about. But yeah, like you say, Stu, they played really well. They scored a free kick, which was probably as good as Omar's earlier in the season. I was really impressed with that. But yeah, they're hitting really good form at the right time. But then you think they've just dropped so many. They lost to Mersey Valley. earlier in the season. I think they drew with Sandbach, which can happen, but yeah, like just needlessly dropping points against some of the teams where you would expect the likes of Egerton to beat them. I suspect if the season started in October, they might be up there, but I suspect, like you, Stu, that they've already dropped too many points and they're going to get reeled in by, like you say, the likes of Knutsford, Dayton, Winsford, who aren't dropping points either. So we'll see what happens. Liam, were you impressed with Egerton?
Yeah, and that was the thing again, like you say, I didn't know too much of Egerton. I trusted the feedback that they did play ball properly, and watching them in that game, you could see they were well organised, they were well drilled, they had the good patterns of play. I liked how reactive they were to the press. I thought it was really good the sort of keep away game style they played, because it wasn't necessarily like a retreat style or anything like that. It was very much a retain possession, recycle, keep it moving, switching side to side. And there's been lots of times where Steve's called, you've got a massive gap on the wing or the wide areas, use the space, make the switch. And it's something we falter a bit with. I think out of all the teams, though, I think it's definitely have it in our capacity to beat them. But I think it's the likes of us and Dayton have that nice mix of the physicality and the ball abilities that a team who, for me, Egerton weren't that physically impactful, I thought. And so for me, I think when we're at the races, we could have given them a proper game, and ideally on the return leg, we come out narrow winners. I think it's a closer game than that scoreline shows, but they have a high goal difference for a reason. That pattern of play, that style, they are breaking lines, they're breaking through blocks, they're drawing in presses and making people commit and playing past them, and it's working. And the only upside is that we do have 5 games in hand on them, 8 points behind. If we get back into a vein of form, we can move past this little rough patch. We can close that gap down, and the likes of us and Winsford can start to claw back towards the top of the table against Egerton and Dayton and go, right, now we've had our games. Who's the real ones that are looking like title and promotion favourites? Is it you or is it us? So I think we might see a bit of change, but it all depends on the attitudes for me.
Thankfully, we had another game straight after that one where I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't going into it with any kind of confidence at all. So I don't know about how the players felt at that stage. Again, against Claybrow, who we played them for the 4th time now, and we've had 4 incredibly close games with them. 4 games have been separated by 1 goal on each of our 4 meetings. We went a goal down after about 6 minutes, came back to win 2-1. After 6 minutes, I wasn't expecting that at all. So, Stu, Stretford Paddock 2, Claybrow 1, 3 much needed points. In the words of Claire Walk at full time, we needed that.
We certainly did need that. Obviously, off the back of what we've been speaking about for the last 35, 40 minutes, we just needed another performance, didn't we? We needed a better attitude. We needed more passion. We needed to see more from our team. Score aside, if we got a point, 3 points, whatever, great. But we needed to see something from our team. And they gave us that. When you consider we still had people like Reese coming into his 2nd match, off the back of conceding 5, not his fault. He had a good match. He stopped it from being probably 8 or 9 that day against Egerton. You had Stack having the fill in at right back. You had a debut in Joe McGuinness. So you had a Sam Pratt up front who is struggling to get service. Weren't too sure how it was going to go. We just needed a performance from the lads. Show us some heart, and they went out and did that. Of course, you can't escape the fact that it was yet again another defensive error that led to us conceding a goal. Absolutely shocking. I'm not too sure what anyone was thinking there. Why that ball wasn't just getting rid, I have no idea. But a very tame back pass header to the keeper that got nowhere near him to Reese. Reese, not Reese's fault again. And we conceded early doors. To be fair to the lads, they could have let their heads drop. But I think I heard from online where I was watching, the lads were trying to G themselves up. We've got plenty of time. Let's keep our heads. And they did exactly that. They did the right thing. They managed the game as best they could, kept themselves in it. And, of course, we had players like Kiefer, who got a start, Dylan, who got a start. And look where that we've now suddenly got the ball being passed around. We're using the full width of the pitch again. We're being dynamic in possession. We're creating chances. We're passing it around the back four. We're bouncing off Joe McGuinness. It was really nice to see the lads starting to play with a bit more identity after a few matches where we were struggling to know who we were again. So to see the lads come from 1-0 down after, you know, a torrid month of results, to come back and win 2-1 is all credit to them. It's exactly what they needed, exactly what we wanted to see from the lads. And we go into a couple more games, which we'll talk about again later on, I guess. But we go into a couple games to finish the month off, hopefully, with more positive performances. Hopefully, this is a springboard to that.
Yeah, I agree with what Stu was saying. I feel it was mentally much better in terms of resilience. We made a silly mistake early on, and we made a silly mistake against Egerton, and probably silly mistakes against Knutsford. You know, it's been that sort of way lately, and I can't help but think that does tie in with the confidence issues. But we also know Clayborough quite well. We've played them a lot this season. We've played them a lot in history. We've had a better record against them. So I think there's that degree of Manchester Merseyside rivalry as well playing into it. Just, you know, a bit of that importance to the match and giving us a bit of that fight and that spirit. And even though we lost Luke Morris to injury, I thought people stepped up well. I thought Sam Walker was back to playing fairly well. You know, still a few mistakes in there, but there were mistakes in there from everyone. You know, just half a yard off passes, half a yard off tackles, just not quite there, but a much better showing than against Egerton for sure. And I did, obviously, you know, we've laughed about it in the members group on Telegram. I did dig out Joe Coleman a bit because for me, I thought Dylan was doing really nicely in terms of his body shape and turning people and keeping the ball moving. I thought Joe McGuinness was very good with, you know, one touch to take it, one touch to pass it on, just keeping that ball shuttling around and keeping the possession going. And I thought out of the three, Joe was the weak link. And we saw Claudio come in and he has his issues with decision making, but he was offering us some direct play, some drive, some dribbling from the middle. So it definitely helped, you know, chopping and changing that Steve did and the subs he made. But again, the kids are all right. The kids are helping keeping us going.
I'm glad you brought them up, Leon, because I only speak for myself and I don't speak for the entire membership base or anyone other than myself. But for me, like the kids have to start now, particularly Kiefer and Dylan. I thought Joe McGuinness had an excellent debut for us at the weekend. He added a bit of steel in the middle, but for me, Kiefer was the best player on the park. And yeah, he will try and take on three players sometimes and lose it. But on the other two times, he'll take them on and beat them and put in a good cross or get a shot away. And he makes things happen. And I get it, like the kids are young and you want to ease them in and get them used to adult football. And there might be, you know, more physical opponents where you think maybe they're not ready for it. But for me, I think they're particularly Dylan and Kiefer, I think they're proving that no matter what you throw at them, they're always one of our better players on the pitch. And no, for me, I think they've had starts when players have been missing, like senior players have been missing. But for me now, on merit, they are two of our best 11 players, and they should be in the starting 11. Then another point I wanted to make was I don't think we played particularly well against Clayborough either. Like we won the game, and I also don't think Clayborough were particularly good. I think the first time we played them earlier in the season, when we nicked that 1-0 away in that rainstorm, that looked like two teams that were going into a game with 100% records where they were first against second. And I think the game at the weekend where we edged it 2-1, that was a game between two sides struggling for form. Probably, I think Clayborough had won one in their last four. Both sides weren't particularly good. And I think we just got the rub of the green that day. And I think, to be fair, we tend to get that against Clayborough. I think they must absolutely detest playing Stretford Paddock because I think they've played us 4 times now. They've lost 4 times by 1 goal. And I'd say at least 2 of them occasions they were the better side. I don't think they were on Saturday. I think that could have gone either way.
I agree about the youth. These lads have shown time and time again that they come on and have an impact. At times they can take the game by the scruff of the neck. When we're looking for some impetus, they can come on off the bench and do it. But importantly, at the weekend, they've shown that they can start, and they can mix it up with the best of them, rise to the occasion, and with the fixtures we've got coming up, I think this is the key. It's the fixtures we've got coming up. We've now got the opportunity to be able to give them those starts. So I hope that they get their just desserts, and with the performance they're putting in, there's dedication going to the training. Hopefully they're listening to the coaches and what they're wanting from them. They'll get a run of games, is what I'm hoping. The only thing I think that I'm looking for from Kiefer is keep doing what you're doing, but know when to release that ball, know when to keep that possession. You don't have to, you can take on a couple of men and draw the third one in, but know when to get it away. So we keep that possession, exploit the space that you've just created because you've pulled someone out of position. Start learning that part of your game instead of only trying to take people on, get the cross in, maybe trying to take on too many people and get tackled and lose possession straight away. Just that tweak to his game would be amazing. And I guess the closest I can compare it to, I think, from my experience of watching Paddock, is probably Kieran Malloy. I think when you look technically like what Stee and Gibbo would be doing, they might say they're two completely different players, and they probably would be right. But from my non-coaching head and just a spectator perspective, I see two very similar players there. But Kieran Malloy is obviously much more well-rounded because he's a bit older and learnt that side of his game. So hopefully Kiefer can learn that, and he'll be, what he does will have an even bigger impact.
They make stuff happen, Stu. Like, we've had games. I just said it about the Egerton game. They could have played a scarecrowing goal. And
yeah,
we've had a team full of players which were not performing. If ever there's a time to give the kids a chance, it's when your senior players aren't stepping up to the mark, and that's now.
Yeah, there are senior players who haven't been on form for quite some time now. The lads like Noah and Kiefer and Dylan have been knocking on the door constantly for the last couple of months, and potentially now's the time to give them that reward.
For me, Noah's the one of those three that I really want to see more of. I rate all three of them highly, I really do. But for me, Noah's got such a balanced personality and play style. He can be that driving player and he can be that link-up player. And I think at the three of them, he's got the most well-rounded game to him. And I'd love to see. Obviously, I want Cam Waters back in right back because I want Zach back in the six. I think he's much more effective there. But now we've got Joe McGuinness who can play the six as well. We can afford for them to gun harder in the six and play that dog-legged midfield of Joe McGuinness or Zach in the six, Dylan or Joe Coleman in the 8, and then Noah or Claudio in the 10. And I think having 3 midfielders to start and then 3 to sub in, you can afford to burn that midfield's energy out more. And I think if Steve can find just the right balance of which 3 works with which 3 in terms of that harmony, we'll start to see us explode back into games a bit more and start to match up the goal difference we're seeing from Egerton, from Clay Brow, because we're on 11 there in the 30s. And I think we're just missing that just little click from midfield in terms of how we can either overload teams or just deny them possession, just a little bit missing. And I think Noah's really good at that. And I thought when he came on as substitute against Clay Brow, I thought he was very disciplined in what he did. And yeah, I think we're looking at the games ahead, and I know we'll get to them in a minute. But we've got Winstanley and we've got Cheadle Heath to come, and then a cup game against Darwin. I think these are the sort of games you've got to be playing more minutes for the youth, and even starts for Noah against Darwin at least then, just to show what they can do, because there's a lot of talent there, there's a lot of eagerness, and it can't hurt to put some pressure on people who might be sitting on their laurels or in a bit of a weird headspace.
The pressure's already there for me. The pressure's there. People not performing consistently, and these lads are coming in and they're showing that Paddock spirit whenever they get on the pitch. And if they've performed well in that previous match, they've gone to training and they performed well in training, then they've turned up on time for the next match and they've been selected, they should be starting the game. I know that we're at a level where you've got people who work, they've got other commitments, family, whatever, but these lads are fully committed. They're doing what we want them to do, and hopefully what Steve and Gibbo are asking them to do. And if it comes down to merit, the lads should be starting next week for me. No question about it.
Yeah, I agree. And merit doesn't just mean showing up on their performances on the pitch now. Merit starts. The kids are consistently our better players on each game. Noah, I'm still 50-50, whether he's for me whether he's like ready, but Kiefer definitely ready, and Dylan's a cert. Like I don't think he's had a bad game, and there might be the odd occasion where he's like let a man run off him, but every midfielder we've played, whether they're 13 or 30, has done that at some stage, and it can be coached. So, and like Leon says, it's good to have 6 midfielders there fighting over 3 spots. That means there aren't any of those quote unquote undroppables anymore, and everybody has to put in a maximum effort and a proper shift in, because you've now got a mate standing right behind you ready to take your spot. Thoughts on Joe McGuinness, guys? Debut from him. He got man of the match on the day.
Really good. He has a bit of presence about him, doesn't he? Calm presence, I thought, came in and things were quite fluid through the middle. I felt as though the defence trusted him by putting the ball at his feet, and he was bouncing the ball around one touch, opening up the space behind him. He wasn't afraid to play something a bit more creatively. I was really impressed with him, and I think that it's clear that maybe he's not up to full match fitness at the moment, but by God, if he needs a few matches to get up to that point and he's playing like that, we've got a player on our hands here.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one. I thought he was very, very good in the first half, very calm, composed, and kept us at the races. I thought after we conceded the silly goal, I thought we were the better team than Claybrow. I thought we just got our composure back and just held steady. I didn't think we were that inspiring, but I thought if we played like that the whole time, we don't concede. So it was a bit of a wake up, but I think a big part of that was Joe McGuinness just keeping us steady. He tailed off as we got into the second half, and I did that classic commentator's thing of praised him on air, and then he started to mislay passes. At which point we're like, he's tired. But he did a lot, and fair dues to him. I did speak briefly to Lewis before the game in terms of have you got any insight on him, because he's not a player I believe has come through the ranks. He said no, he's a fairly new addition to the squad. Looks really good in training, and he said I think he's played in the Cheshire Prem before, so I'd love to know more about him. But he does have a bit of that sort of calmness, that composure, just that a steady Eddie type. Just keep it moving, keep it sensible, and good things follow.
I've got to bring up one more point about the Claybrow game, and I hate to do this because it is an amateur league, or we hope it's an amateur league. The officiating at the Claybrow game, I watched the game back on VO, and I normally watch most of these games back, and I think the offsides are very difficult to give because we don't have linesmen, and when we do have linesmen, it's normally the third sub doing the line, and they both cheat, and it's ridiculous, and the referees just go with their own intuition. The offside decisions at the Claybrow game were awful, and awful for both sides. Like there were occasions where players were clean through on goal, started in their own half, and getting flagged offside. There were occasions where, well, for example, the last play of the game. So George Lomax got played through on goal by their midfielder. He must have been 3 yards offside. 3 yards offside. I've watched it back, and referee says play on. This is 94th minute. Somehow Michael Olatunji got back to wrestle the ball from him, and then we ran up the other end and got a penalty. But there's an occasion about 3 minutes before that where George Lomax, again, he got played through on goal. He's 2 yards onside. Referee gives it offside. I mean, I don't want to say anybody's cheating because it was just equally bad for both sides, but it's so frustrating in an amateur league not to have linesmen. And I think in the Premier League you do get linesmen. I think that's kind of assistant referees are provided at Cheshire Prem level, but that's going to be a major benefit of being promoted to the Cheshire Premier League, because it's just frustrating week after week, just the inconsistencies. And I get it, the referees don't want to trust the linesman, but then they have to make a decision when they're not in a very good position to make that call. It's just inconsistency, and it's frustrating. And it's happening nearly every week, but the fact that this week was obvious to me, it was obviously the worst I'd seen it.
Yeah, you can talk about things like the challenge on Kiefer about 60 seconds into the match as well, which probably could have warranted at least a yellow, probably on some other days a red immediately in that game. So you've given a couple of instances where maybe Claybrow can feel hard done by, but then they were probably quite fortunate with a couple of the decisions not to give yellows out. Did they get a sin bin at one point, didn't they? Or am I making that up?
No, the Egerton game that was. They had a sin bin and we did nothing. Yeah, they had a sin bin and we thought, maybe we can do something. It's 3-0 down against Egerton. They got a sin bin, and at the end of the sin bin, just before he came back on, they scored a free kick.
They went down to 10 and we still couldn't get the ball.
Yeah, we couldn't touch the ball. They scored, and then he came back on, and they scored again, and that was just summed up the game.
See, I've got it off my chest now after moaning so much about our performance against Egerton that I'm starting to feel a bit more positive, because you talk about the officials. Actually, that ref at the Egerton game, I felt was bloody good. He was really good, and I don't know if you could hear him on VO, but probably the best one we've had this season. But like Chris is saying, the point you're making is the inconsistency, and it impacts when you've got a league where it probably is going to be determined by the matter of 1 point for promotion between all these rivals. It matters.
Yeah, I mean, if Clayborough were probably upset that they didn't get a few calls at the weekend, but honestly, if George Lomax would have gone through in the 94th minute, 3 yards offside, and put it around the goalkeeper and scored, we'd not have got that penalty. We'd have lost 2-1 instead of 1-2-1. And at the end of the season, that's a 3-point swing between Clayborough, who I think will be up there. Like, I think they'll be minimum top 3. I know they're in 6th at the moment, but for me, they've got a lot of easier games to come, and they've got games in hand. Yeah, I think if we finish above Clayborough, we get promoted. That's my prediction.
Hang on. Chris is always putting everyone else on the spot. Hang on, Chris. You've just said there that Clayborough are going to be top 3. So give me, what does your top 3 look like then, Chris?
This is controversial. I think Knutsford are favourites.
Oh,
yeah, I know.
That is controversial.
It is. I think it'll be Knutsford first, Paddock second, Clayborough third, Dayton fourth for me. I think Winsford have not dropped many points, but they've not played anybody. They've only played 2 of the top 7, and they've dropped points in both of those games. Egerton are the best team I've seen this year, but like I said earlier, I think they've dropped too many points early on in the season, and they're going to run out of games. They've only got 11 games left. Obviously, we know that in the middle of the table, there are teams like Sandbach, Mersey Valley, Style that could turn over any of the top sides on their day. I think Mersey Valley scored 8 the other week, didn't they? So they've clearly had a shot in the arm somewhere. So yeah. There's no easy games in the Cheshire League. There are a few easy games in this league this year, but you expect all the top teams to beat them and quite comfortably. So, you don't expect any favours in those games. But there you go. You are giving you the league table.
You're giving us a league table, but you are, like me, a data guy, and you started looking into some of this, didn't you? So, some people are talking about, some other teams having easier starts to the league, but didn't you crunch some numbers and bring some receipts with you, Chris, today about, who we've played so far this season?
Statistically, based on games played so far, Paddock have had the hardest start in the league. So that's based on current league positions. I mean, we've played 14 games and 8 of them have been against the top 7. So I think that says it all. And then you compare that to Winsford, like I say, you've only played 2 games out of 13 against the top 7. So nearly all of their games have been against the bottom half. But then if you look at who's taken the most points off the teams in the top half of the league, and that's Dayton, because they've actually won 3 of 5 against the top 7. So long way to go, but I think those little bits of information can be helpful because, like you said, we've got a league table where Egerton have played 19 games and Winsford have played 13. So it's never really an even keel on the actual league table. I'm throwing it back at you though, guys. What's your top 3 at the end of the season? Liam, have you ever given a prediction? I don't think you have. We'll start with you.
I not officially. I've given one in the Telegram group. For me, I did point out that, and that was a bit of a lazy one. I pointed out who I think the top sort of 6 will be. For me, Dayton will win the league this year. I think they've got enough about them to deal with the pretenders and whatnot. Paddock second. I did have a top 6. I wasn't sure how we'd fare this season because Steve was optimistic, but new league for us. Didn't want to be too giddy, but I think based on what we've seen, based on what I know we can do, I think second's fair. And then Egerton third. I think Knutsford and Clayborough will make up that top 5. And I think Winsford will tricky one. I could see I could see them. They found a bit of form, winning the league themselves, but they're all or nothing to me. They're either going to be first or 6th.
Winsford are an enigma, aren't they? Because they've not been tested yet, and the times they have been tested, which is very few occasions, they've not really delivered a win. So
Yeah, and I know we drew with them, but I thought that was the start of us starting to slip off performance-wise as well. I think, we can play better than that, and I think we had the chances to hurt them that game and to come away with the win. So, yeah, I think when they got started to get tested, I think they might have a bit of that shake to their confidence and could fall off. But sometimes that galvanised the team. They could as easily turn it around. But yeah, based on just rounded abilities and performance, I think Dayton for me just ahead of us. But that's if we regain our form. If we play like this the rest of the season, we're going to be in with St Helens and Mersey Valley in mid-table.
Right. It's now that Florin's left, we can actually say we might not finish first and not get loads of abuse. Go on then, Stu. Top three.
We're in the total challenge, but I think I'm going to say Dayton to win it, Paddock to promote in second, and then in third, Winsford. And there's going to be people who listen to this podcast, people who we know listen in attentively every single podcast, and they'll be sitting there thinking, these guys think they're going to get promoted in their first season. But you look at it and you go, you know what? If you turn the tables and you put yourself in our position, you'd be favouring yourself as well. You'd be saying, why not us? Why isn't there anybody within that top six right now able to say we could get promoted here? And there's people who could sit there and they've got their bias and would go, you could look at Dayton, you could look at Winsford, you could make a case for Knutsford, Egerton, etc. But when it gets to Paddock, they'll go, nah, why they even think they're in there? But we are. It doesn't matter how much you want to disagree with it. You look at the facts, you look at that table, you look at who we've played first half of the season and the points we've amassed. We are in the promotion challenge. So yeah, I think that we are going to come second.
Our Achilles heel in previous seasons has been dropping points against the bottom teams. If we can put that right this year, and so far this season we've won every single game against the bottom half teams, we can't finish any lower than the top four. So we have to be in there. And like we've proven, we can take points off the bigger sides as well. We've beaten Knutsford. The Paddock, this is why I'm backing Knutsford, right? This is me pleading my case. But the Paddock victory against Knutsford is only the first time they've lost since the 2nd of August. So they lost their first 2 games of the season, and they've won every game or drawn. They've won every game bar 2 since then, including cup games against Premier teams. So that's why I'm back in Knutsford.
Wow.
It's good form, though. I mean, I think when we beat them, they'd won 7 in a row, and then we beat them, and then they've probably won like another 7 since then. I think they drew with Claybrow, but yeah, Paddock had proven they could beat the top sides.
And you was right earlier on. We have to go into the next round of fixtures and subsequent ones after in the new year, really in the mindset of we could go on a 2 or 3 month run of form here. And you looked back to 24-25, we had a serious 3-4 month run of form, which took us towards the top of the table and promotion challenge. And we have the set of fixtures that could help us do that, albeit being, some really tricky ones that are never dead certs. Your Mersey Valleys, they're always going to be difficult games. So we've got the opportunity to really go on a damn good run of form.
At the start of the season, I said Paddock would finish 4th. And because our start has been so much better than we expected, I think 4th would now be disappointing, wouldn't it? I think top 3 may still go up, like depending on what happens with the promotion from the Cheshire Prem into the counties. But yeah, to finish 4th now, I'd be a bit gutted. Yeah, speaking of picking up points against the bottom half teams, we've won every game against the bottom half, but we almost didn't, because first game of the season, we won 3-2 against Winstanley at our place, and we were fantastic for the first 30 minutes. We were awful for the final 20, and we went from 3-0 up to 3-2 up and hanging on for dear life. And I think that just shows the fragility of this league. If you do put in a subpar performance for even half a game, then you can get turned over, and that's who we've got next. So We travel up to Little Lane to face Winstanley Warriors, a team that have improved since we last played them, but they're still kind of mid-table. The facts are that if we want to be anywhere near that top 3, top 4 promotion race, you've got to be beating Winstanley.
Absolutely. You look at the most recent games, you can go all the way back and have a look at the results there on the table, but they don't really tell you what the team you're coming up against now. But the last 2 games, you don't know who you're going to get. You've got a team who beat Cheadle Heath 2-1 away from home, and you've also got a team that lost 2-1 away from home to Winsford. So 2 contrasting opponents, and they've narrowly won 1, narrowly lost 1. So quite clearly, they're capable of turning up to the bigger games, and we need to go into that fixture knowing that there's nothing but our A form that we need.
And the lads will be full of confidence after listening to the pod anyway, because none of us have backed us to win the league. So just despite that, guys, get out there and show you're going to be champions. Liam, anything to say about the Winstanley game? Any words of wisdom?
Like that start of the first time we played them this season, we played some brilliant football against them. We have played some brilliant football throughout a lot of the campaign season. Let's rediscover that form. These are not as difficult as the last 2 sides we've met. Doesn't mean we should switch off against them, but even if we play like we played against Egerton, we shouldn't lose this game. And we are at the point where I say we've got a respectable goal difference, but we want to push higher. We want to move from the low, from 11 we're on into the 20s for me, and that gets through good comfortable wins. We're looking 3-0, 4-1s, that sort of thing against Winstanley and beyond as we start to face a few of the lower table sides. Let's make it count. Let's focus, treat them with respect, but punish them with the quality we know we've got.
Yeah, definitely respect the opponents. For me, Winstanley are in that group, that awkward middle group in the table where they could take points off on many of the top sides. And I think there are some teams in this league that are going to get beat heavily most weeks, but for me, Winstanley are not one of them, and I think they could take points off us if we're not at it. One team that did get 3 points at the weekend, Stu, I know you're desperate to give them a shout out, but Paddock women's team are top of Greater Manchester Women's Football League Division 1.
Goddamn right they are. Absolutely phenomenal stuff. The ladies are going strength to strength, aren't they? Tough game out there at the weekend. And who better to score the winning goal than our manager/player in Meg Stapleton coming back to her playing days and smashing in the winner. The ladies seem to have, from what I hear, a fantastic relationship with each other. There's a great community going on there. We've got people like Martha Atkinson who got her goal scoring boots on constantly. Absolutely loving banging the goals in this league. She is. I said to Meg not long ago that the ladies in the middle of the pitch play some really nice football. A centre midfield kind of triangle, if that's what you want to call it. They really have really great positional awareness, great touch on the ball, know what they're going to do with it next. It's been lovely to watch some of their football recently, and some of the goals are absolutely stonkers, complete worldies, and they find themselves at the top of the league, which is incredible. And I think they've only played one extra game more than second place, so it's not like they're 3 or 4 games up on other opponents, so they're really in for the title challenge. I know Meg, as she said a few podcasts ago, she wants that title with the team.
It's 4 wins in 5 now for the women's team, and I think they dropped points in their first 2 games, but since then they've really picked up, so which is really commendable when you think a brand new team just kind of being pitted together, to all get to know each other and learn how each other play, and find yourself top of the league after 9 games or so. Well done, Meg and the ladies.
We do get promoted. We get to play against Hyde United.
Do we?
Yeah,
are they in
the league above? Yeah, we're Greater Manchester Women's Football League Division 1, the Premier Division above us. West Didsbury and Chorlton, Lim Rovers, Oldham Athletic, Hyde United.
Want to know another perk of getting promoted? I don't know if I don't care if I can't say it, but basically Steve Allison told me that if we get promoted to the next level, the women, we're eligible to loan players from Man United.
Yeah. The thing is, just from like tangentially about, obviously I do football photography for a women's team. The level of the sort of 16, 17-year-old girls that we have in tier 3, they would be star players in tier 6 and 7. So to get to 7 and to be able to say to a team of the ilk of United to go, have you got any 16-year-olds who would just need a season of game time? We'll promise to play them starting choice, game. That could be incredible for us and for them. Like, we could just take a handful of, two, three, 4 girls off them, blast through that league, and suddenly you're in the Northwest Counties. And then suddenly you're looking upwards and going, hang on a minute, we're up here with Wigan Athletic, and looking upwards to FC United, Tranmere, Crewe, Bolton. They're not that far ahead of us. So, good luck to the girls. We're clearly making the right moves. And we see the same with some of the players at our level. You can have dual registration. It's quite common in the women's game from WSL 2 downwards to say, right, we're going to dual register you with someone in the league below and just have you get game experience. There's real potential for people in our system that are going to be bigger time than perhaps where we're at the moment to stay with us, get that game time to develop them towards the big time and help us climb up that way ourselves. And, I think doing it properly, the way we've built the men's team, the way we're building our academy system, I think we could do a really good job, and I think very easily get to level 6, and then we start to have to have a little bit of a think about pushing levels 5. But I think we're seeing so many independent clubs out there, like Worcester City, for example. They're in tier 5 or 4, I believe, somewhere around there, doing the exact same thing that Paddock are doing. So the possibilities are there. The women's game's got growing support. And having someone in like Meg and the team she's building, it's super exciting for the future for Paddock's women.
Here we go. We got a positive to end the podcast on.
Hey!
Get in there.
We've all predicted Paddock to not win the league.
No, we'll win the women's league, so we won't win our league.
There we go. Well, congratulations to Dayton and Knutsford. You've been crowned champions on the podcast in November. And no pressure, Meg, but you've been predicted to win the league as well. So bring it home for us. Right then, lads, on to Winstanley away. I guess I'll see you all there, or see you all on YouTube or Twitch. But until then, it's goodbye from Liam.
Goodbye.
It's goodbye from Stu.
Goodbye, everyone. Up the fucking paddock.
And it's goodbye from me. Up the paddock.